There was an explosive courtroom showdown in California between Tony Busby and Jay-Z, and it left everyone stunned. For those unaware, Tony Busby and Jay-Z are locked in legal battles across multiple states: California, Alabama, and Louisiana. They're fighting everywhere except New York. Previously, Busby's team dismissed the claims against Jay-Z with prejudice in New York City, which meant those claims could never be brought back. What makes this even more intriguing is why that dismissal happened. The court counsel stated it was because there had been an agreement between Jay-Z's lawyer and Tony Busby's lawyer. But here's where it gets messy. They never put it in writing, and when both sides did everything they were supposed to do, Jay-Z's lawyer pulled out at the very last second. The law may be a game of strategy, but someone clearly played it hard that day. Now, one of the strangest revelations from this hearing has people talking. There were false rumors spreading that the judge had ruled in Jay-Z's favor. That's not true. What actually happened was a tentative ruling, which isn't final or binding. Judges use tentative rulings to help narrow a case and guide the attorneys on which issues to focus on. It's basically the judge saying, "Alrighty, this sounds believable, but show me more evidence by tomorrow." But the real shocker came when Jay-Z was caught in what appears to be a major lie during court. He claimed he had simply misspoken. Misspoken? Let's unpack that. This all started with the private investigators allegedly sent to harass Jane Doe. And if you've heard the audio, it genuinely sounds like she's being harassed, even though her dog in the background sounds terrified. Jay-Z initially denied everything, saying he had no idea who Jane Doe was, insisting the world needed to know her identity because this was somehow a matter of constitutional rights. At first, that explanation sounded plausible until it didn't, because soon after, it came out that private investigators had in fact shown up at Jane Doe's home. So why was Jay-Z pretending he didn't know who she was? His team quickly told the judge, "We don't know who these private investigators are. Jay-Z didn't hire them." But that raised even more questions. If Jay-Z didn't hire them, then who did? Diddy? Roc Nation? Because no random group of private investigators spends their time tracking down a Jane Doe and filing affidavits for free. Somebody's paying, and somebody's lying. Then Jay-Z's camp tried to clean things up. They claimed, no, these private investigators were hired by Desiree from Roc Nation. But wait, isn't Desiree Jay-Z's business partner? Isn't Roc Nation his company? So if Desiree, representing Roc Nation, hired those investigators, wouldn't that still be on Jay-Z's behalf? That's the same pot of money, the same operation. But just when everyone thought the story couldn't get any stranger, Jay-Z's lawyer appeared in court and dropped a bombshell. "Your Honor, we misspoke. It wasn't Roc Nation." That left everyone asking, then who was it? Because if it wasn't Roc Nation, the possibilities narrow fast. Some are wondering, was it Diddy? When Jay-Z finally revealed what happened, the courtroom couldn't believe it. It was one of those jaw-dropping moments where everyone realized maybe we've been giving Jay-Z far too much credit. Because at least when people thought he had Desiree from Roc Nation hire those investigators, it made a bit of sense. But the truth behind who really did it was something no one expected. At first, it almost seemed plausible, right? There was at least a faint trace of deniability. Even though it was giving off strong, "I'm not friends with Diddy, just an associate" energy, despite years of partying together, calling each other family, and hugging on stage for more than a decade, there was still some small shred of separation to cling to. But then came the bombshell in court. Jay-Z admitted that it wasn't Roc Nation who hired the private investigators, it was his assistants. Yes, he claimed his assistants were the ones who hired the private investigators who allegedly showed up at Jane Doe's home. Now think about that for a second. Jay-Z expects the court and the world to believe his assistants took it upon themselves to hire private investigators, professionals who don't work for free, without his knowledge? Who paid them? Whose money was used for that? Even Jay-Z's lawyer had to clarify the story in court. He told the judge, "Your Honor, we misspoke earlier when we said Roc Nation hired the investigators who spoke to Jane Doe at her home in Alabama. It was actually someone who worked for Mr. Carter, one of his assistants." Seriously? One of his assistants just decided to launch an independent investigation tied to a serious legal case without direction or approval from their billionaire boss? That's what they want everyone to believe. And here's the bigger question. If Jay-Z's assistant knew who Jane Doe was, even down to where she lived, how could Jay-Z continue claiming he had no idea who she was? How could he justify pushing for her identity to be made public when his own team apparently already knew? Jay-Z might have his reasons for maneuvering the way he does, but the way he's handling this looks like he's playing with everyone's intelligence. These explanations don't even pass the basic sniff test, and yet everyone seems content to sit back and pretend nothing about this situation is strange. People seem to forget Jay-Z once called this case an abomination, crying out that he had to publicly know who this woman was. But now the story keeps changing. First, in Alabama, he said he didn't know who those private investigators were and had nothing to do with them. Then in California, it became Roc Nation hired them, but I'm not Roc Nation. That alone was baffling considering he is literally the founder and owner of Roc Nation. And now to top it off, he's claiming, "Oh wait, I misspoke. It wasn't Roc Nation, it was my assistant." How could anyone misspeak that badly? These shifting explanations look increasingly suspicious. Jay-Z may want to win this case by any means necessary, but with every new twist, the story just keeps looking stranger and harder to believe. But when the truth is truly on your side, do you really need to rely on so many dirty tricks? Let's not forget what might have been the dirtiest trick of all. The entire reason Tony Buzbee and his team withdrew the case with prejudice, meaning Jane Doe's case can never be brought up again, was because Jane Doe became terrified. She was scared of the overwhelming media coverage, the relentless pressure from Jay-Z's camp, and the brutal way the public turned against her. Feeling cornered and afraid, she finally said, "Okay, fine. If I withdraw this, can we just move on?" An agreement was made if she withdrew the case, they'd leave her alone. Jane Doe's side upheld their end, but there was one fatal mistake. Her lawyers didn't get it in writing. They had an email, yes, but no signed contract. And when everything was done on her part, Jay-Z's team backed out at the very last minute, saying, "No deal." So let's be honest, that's not a clean victory. That's a technical win built on trickery. You don't have to be a Buzbee fan or a Jay-Z supporter to see what happened here. If that promise hadn't been made, Jane Doe's team would never have withdrawn. So was that really justice or just a strategic move to manipulate the outcome? Now we're back in court, and once again, Jay-Z's explanations keep changing. First, it was Diddy's circle, then Roc Nation, then suddenly it was his assistant. Really? The assistant? Even the judge wasn't buying it. The judge made it clear that Jay-Z's fingerprints are all over this, whether he knew it or not. "You're telling me," the judge essentially said, "that your assistant knew more than you did and was paying for things out of pocket because you're such a generous boss?" The court wasn't convinced. The judge then mentioned he'd look at his calendar to schedule a new hearing date for Jay-Z's and Buzbee's lawyers to return to court and continue their arguments. Again, this isn't a final ruling. The judge's tentative decision only suggested that the new evidence presented by Jay-Z's team might lend credibility to their extortion claim against Tony Buzbee over the dismissed SA lawsuit. But that doesn't mean Jay-Z has won anything. They still have to argue it all over again. And honestly, it's hard to ignore how strange this all looks. Jay-Z may be using every bit of his money, power, and influence to fight this battle, but it's starting to raise serious questions. Why go to such lengths if the truth is supposedly on your side? This is exactly why you never need to feel sorry for billionaires. They have endless resources to protect themselves, even when the tactics turn questionable. One more key moment stood out. Jay-Z's team was aggressively pushing to depose Jane Doe, even while claiming she was mentally fragile. On one hand, they said she wasn't stable enough for the spotlight, yet on the other, they wanted to drag her into a deposition and pressure her even more. Thankfully, the judge stepped in and defended Jane Doe, ruling there was absolutely no need to depose her. That small decision offered her at least a brief moment of protection amid all the chaos. So that's where things stand right now. The fight isn't over, but the pattern is clear and it's only getting messier. For all the latest updates on this unfolding story, stay tuned to Celeb World, where we break down every twist, every lie, and every truth behind Hollywood's biggest scandals. Make sure to subscribe to Celeb World, hit that notification bell, and drop your thoughts in the comments because we want to hear what you think. Do you believe Jay-Z's story adds up, or do you think there's more going on behind the scenes? Let us know below, and we'll see you in the next one.